And I hope you can open our eyes on how we integrate the new management system on the block.
Hopefully, yes. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I hope you already had some morning caffeine intake, because I'm planning to bore you with some dry compliance and GRC-related topic. No, I'm just joking. Hopefully, it will be useful for you. Let's start at the beginning. What is ISO 24001 stands for? So first of all, this is the first created and deployed international standards for the AI management systems. It was developed in 2023, in late 2023, and obviously it was driven by the growing need to having some compliance framework, some recognizable and comparable compliance framework for AI management systems. Maybe surprisingly, especially if you know the ISO world and the international standards world, it was very quickly reacting on the market, right? So if you know ISO 27001, it took more than 10 years between two versions to be updated. And here, practically within a year and a half, they developed a completely new management system, which shows the importance of the whole AI management governance and compliance-related needs for organizations. I want to mention that it was not developed only for private sector, but also for public sectors, and even non-profit organizations should and could benefit from this management framework. The main driver for this international standard is to give a solid foundation for a governance framework, clearly defining roles and responsibilities, defining preferably one accountable role, or at least a board or a committee who is overseeing an organization AI, either development or usage, and obviously to mitigate and address all AI-related risks, which is, I think, very good in this standard, that it is actually building up from a very practical point of view. So it is addressing related compliance controls throughout the whole AI lifecycle. And on the same time, it is considering business goals and objectives, but not really tying the hands of innovation and to go forward with enabling technologies. All right, so as I mentioned, this is the first structured AI management framework, and it is the first auditable framework which gives a certification for companies. Addressing risk from planning phase till practically decommissioning any used AI systems gives a comprehensive overview what we can do the best, how we can use the best our AI management systems. Very important to mention that it is practically fully supports the EU AI Act. So once you are compliant with this certification, you can be more or less sure that you are complying with the EU AI regulations. But also, it is aligned with, for example, the NIST AI risk management framework as well. So that gives a good alignment with the generally global regulations. I mentioned already, and I will mention a couple of more times, because risk management is a very important part of this framework, as usually the ISO frameworks are heavily built on the risk management. And it is enhancing trust and accountability. As in the introduction, it was mentioned as well, accountability so far maybe not that clear when it comes to different risks for the AI management systems. And with this framework, there is a clearly defined pathway with one function or one role who should take the accountability for any AI-related decisions. All right, let's have a closer look on the key elements of the standards. It starts, like every ISO framework, if you are familiar with it, with a governance structure. It requires to establish roles and responsibilities, clearly defining it, decision pathways, so which level in this governance structure and framework can be decided to go for some direction or to another, to veto for one decision or another. And also establishing a clear requirement for an AI oversight and for ethical usage of the AI. And that's where I want to mention that this framework also gives strong requirements for the ethical usage of the AI. So it's not just some technical and an administrative burden, but gives clear guidance how ethically we can develop or use AI technologies. Then risk management integration. It's good news if your company is already certified in certain ISO standards, then you can leverage from the existing risk management approaches, right? So it just gives you a certain additional level of considerations when it comes clearly or very specifically just for the used AI technologies, but you don't have to create it from the scratch, actually, so you can really reuse whatever you have already in place. And as I mentioned, the whole lifecycle management is included. So it's really guides the organizations from the development stages, concept to deployment, and even decommissioning of the AI systems. And the fourth pillar, or the fourth core element of the standard, as I mentioned, is transparency and the human oversight. So finally, it really tells the organizations, yeah, don't just let AI to do whatever it wants, right? Once you are created the models, but have a human oversight at every stage of the AI technology life cycle. So somebody, a human, takes the accountability, and with that one, we can increase the transparency for any used AI technology. Okay, so how this ISO 40001 framework defines the AI lifecycle? So first of all, it starts obviously the inception and feasibility study. So you have to clearly define the objective and goals of certain used or developed AI technologies. What are in the scope, what is out of scope, so you have clear boundaries what you want to include in this framework. Obviously, it needs to be strongly aligned with stakeholder needs and expectations, and also you have to assess at the very beginning the suitability of these AI solutions or any used AI solutions for your organization. So that's what I mentioned at the beginning, that this is not just some quick checklist what every organization can use and you can make sure that you are certified, but it has to be tailor-fitted for your organizational needs. Obviously, you have to consider your whole stakeholders' needs and expectations and influencing factors, both IT, OT, or even other management systems. Then once you have this foundational framework, then it goes to design and development. Strong focus here is on data integrity and model fairness to avoid, for example, algorithmic bias of the different used AI technologies, and documenting assumptions during the whole AI system design phase. Then you have to verify and validate that whatever was developed and implemented is actually according to your initial goals and objectives. So there is a strong need here for continuous testing, continuous reassessment of the risk, for example. So this is where here the risk management is even stronger than, for example, for ISO 27001, because it really talks about continuous rechecking, reassessing of existing risk or new emerging risks. And then deploying and monitoring obviously has a very important part. Talks about strong access control, continuous monitoring of system behavior, right? So if there is some model shift, it should be recognized, and you have to step in and check what's happening with the applied AI model. All right, so a few words about implementation best practices. As we are talking about GRC, right, some of the elements will be very familiar to all of you. First of all, we have to start with a strong AI policy or policies. That's where we have to lay down the foundations for every organization, how we want to use the AI systems, what are the ethical, security, data privacy, and other compliance considerations we want to include in our AI management framework. Then risk management, again, it's a continuous process what we have to implement, so we will have obviously an initial risk assessment where we go through all risk. Again, not just security, although it is a very important part of this stage, but again, the data privacy, for example, or quality, right? Data quality and quality assurance risk also has to be included at this stage. Then we have to implement the control measures, right? We know the risks, we want to control them, so that's where it comes all the actual controls from the framework and how we can address the different risk, technical risk, ethical risks, business risk, security risk. So this is really covers every aspect. And it also talks about continuous training and awareness. So for example, how our company, we started a journey. We selected stakeholders from legal and compliance, data privacy office, security, quality, IT, who we knew they will be included in the implementation of this framework. We trained them and we made sure they understand the needs and expectations. So when it comes to the working groups for the implementation project, they know what is expected from their side as well. So instead, we just sent, a few security guys on a training, and then they try to spread the awareness and knowledge in the organization, which never works probably very effectively. We really made sure that from every function, we have somebody who has at least a solid, basic understanding of the framework. So that made much easier the later discussions and even the decision-making process. As I mentioned, during the implementation, and the whole framework actually is built on this one, we have to consider the transparency. We need to have clear communication between the stakeholders. We have to have this, what I mentioned, this one dedicated function, or at least a steering group, a steering committee who oversees all the AI-related decisions, and all of it is properly documented. So it is auditable, right? So that's the key thing here, that it's not just from technical point of view we document everything, but we make sure that during the whole journey, the decision makings and potential issues and risk raised, they are properly addressed, and we have somebody owning this. Then we have to have the effective monitoring in place, right? Continuously need to track the AI performance, have to check error rates, have to check the fairness, environment changes, right? So we have to have some real-time alerts and dashboards potentially in place to have a real good understanding of any used AI technologies, where they are, what they are doing, what new risks are emerging, is there some flow in the design, there is some new vulnerability we were not aware, and so on. And then, obviously, the most burdensome part is the comprehensive documentation, right? So, as I mentioned, that we have to have record for everything, not just for the decision making, but practically every stage during the whole life cycle. That gives a burden for security teams, for quality teams, and any other stakeholder who is involved in the management system maintenance. We will need written procedures and policies, risk registers, and so on. Then, what are the benefits of this ISO 42001 framework? So obviously, it enhances trust and transparency. It's like with every other certification standard. If we are adopting this framework, we can make sure that we foster an ethical AI management culture within the organization, and with that one we can present to the customers, to the partners, that we are really carefully using AI technologies. Then we are improving, obviously, the governance around the whole used AI technologies, and risk management is improved, and we can ensure regulatory compliance, which at the end can give, especially at this stage, when not many companies are going for this certification yet. In fact, not many companies have any AI-related certifications at this moment, which is internationally recognized. It can give certain market advantages within certain sectors, obviously, in the business. But probably, which for the management or leadership, even more important, that it can give operational efficiency and competitive edge. Right, if the governance is done right and everything is well-defined, clear accountabilities, preliminary defined decision points, decision ways, then it is reducing the operational cost of any AI management system. Okay, so let's talk about pros and cons of this framework. So for the business impact, definitely a huge positive about the building trust, which can attract, obviously, investors and gives the competitive edge against other companies. Then from compliance point of view, as I mentioned, it fully supports the EU AI Act and some other global requirements as well. So that for the leadership and the legal compliance team, it gives a little bit of relief that they don't have to do additional implementations. Then for operations, obviously, as I mentioned, it can improve efficiency if it is done right, if it is really not just implemented for the sake of implementation and to have some documentation in place. And it's provide a clear structure for fairness, transparency, and oversight, so that will support any future business decision as well. So what are the cons? Well, it has an upfront cost, obviously, and it is pretty resource intensive. As I mentioned, just for the initial trainings, we had to include so many functions, right, just to give the foundational knowledge for this one. And then, as it's really a cross-organizational effort, there are really headcounts related for this implementation, and even later for the maintenance part, it can be intensive, resource intensive. Then it requires an ongoing effort to stay compliant, right? Sure. So if we want to be auditable, then certain tasks needs to be repeated continuously. It adds documentation and administrative burden, right? So this is, unfortunately, with every compliance framework and standards, it's true. And it can be complex for smaller teams and organizations. So in summary, it might not be fitting for every organization. You have to really check what benefits you want to see from this framework. But for bigger organizations who are developing or using heavily AI solutions, it can really give a competitive edge and a good internal assurance as well that we are doing our AI journey in a good way. We have transparency in place. We have ethical use of AI in place, and we have the right technology controls in place as well. So that's all from me. And now questions.